Had a date with my baby last night, and she didn't do me right. So she gave me the blues.
I drink to that.
Yeah, why not?
Why not indeed, Roger? Welcome to the Quarantini hour. Are we on? We're on the air. Okay, everybody, it's the Quarantini happy hour, and I'm very, very proud to have as our guest on the show this evening, my good friend Roger.
Yeah,
Roger
man.
Lewis.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I tell you,
I'm thrilled that you could come and do this.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing and it's a lesson because we just got you playing some very improv. I learned some things about the saxophone that I didn't know I could try. Some different techniques. I mean, it's a learning experience. You know what I mean?
For me too. For me too.
Yeah.
So Roger and I have known each other for many years now, and we've toured together. And played on shared stages all over the States, all the way over to Australia,
yeah, that's right.
Europe.
That's right.
And we even played Sydney Opera House.
Yeah.
You remember that one?
I think I do. I mean, there's so many of them, you know.
You know why I remember that gig? Because it was your birthday, and a girl jumped out of an enormous birthday cake.
Oh! That was in Australia.
You remember that one?
Yeah, now I remember.
A girl jumped out of an enormous birthday cake.
And I jumped back in the cake.
And you jumped in you tried to get back in the cake.
Yeah, I got a picture of that, man.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, and at the same, while that was happening, me and Alan Toussaint were playing Happy Birthday to You on the piano.
That's right.
On stage at Sydney Opera House. And this was after everybody had left.
Yeah, that was I enjoyed it. Then they brought me to a strip club afterwards.
Oh, did they? Oh,
I
don't remember that bit.
Yeah, they did. They brought me to a strip club. I mean, they brought me. How old I was? I think I might have been, what? See, I'm 79 now.
Are you really? God.
Yeah, I just made 79, October 5th.
Oh,
yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yeah,
oh, that's
man.
why I knew it was your birthday. I sent you a little happy
79.
birthday message on Facebook.
If I make it through COVID, I'll be, 80. Hey, we're going to keep on making it do what it do,
So, well, you've been out here doing this for a little minute then.
Well, I started playing music in 1948. And the first instrument was piano. My mother wanted me to play the piano because she's a church-going lady.
Yeah.
And she wanted me to play in the church. And at that time, piano lessons was like 50 cents a lesson. Yeah, I used to walk maybe about 5 miles to take piano lessons. But I had a cousin by the name of Alvin Bailey. He played alto saxophone with Roy Goodrock and Brown. He was the alto player.
Good Rockin' Tonight.
Yeah, and the alto was under the bed. He probably left it there or something. I don't know. My other cousin, he got the home, but he didn't really play it. So I looked at it, and I wanted to play the saxophone. So my dad bought me a saxophone when I was 10 years old. That was 1950, and it was a tenor saxophone. Now, it just goes to show you how crazy I am. So I got this brand new horn, man. And I was looking at it, and I was fascinated with the keys and everything,
Yeah.
So I took it loose. I took all this stuff off.
You just spent all that money buying you a saxophone.
Yeah, I took all the keys off. I took a screwdriver and took everything off, man. It's a true story. My daddy came home from work. You see, you better put it back together.
I bet he did.
And I put it back together, had a couple of keys left over. But when I was a kid, like I guess probably around 8 years old or 7 years old, or probably around 8 years old, I was always fascinated with the shape of the saxophone,
Yeah.
and I used to take newspapers and roll it in the shape of a comb, and then fashion it into.
And play pretend
Then
saxophone.
pretend I had all kinds. I had big ones, little ones, you know.
Ah.
Yeah, I had them all hanging up, man. You know, I didn't have little
So
like
that's great that your mum and dad saw you doing that and
I
said, let's
can't.
get him a real one.
Yeah, so now I got a whole house full of full of saxophones. Yeah, you
So
know.
tell me a little bit about Alvin Bailey. This sounds like an.
He played with Roy Good Rock and Brown. You
He
know.
was older than you?
Yeah, yeah. He passed a few years ago, and you know he played around New Orleans. He was well known as he was an alto saxophone player,
I've heard his name. I've seen
and
his name on records too.
and I wind up playing with him. I'm trying to. He used to play. I tell you what club he used to play. He used to play with on Bourbon Street at the with the Crazy Shirley.
Yeah, I've
He
heard
used to
Crazy
play with
Shirley.
Shelton McGee and John Duvall.
Ah.
He used to play with those guys.
Did he play with Smiley Lewis at one point?
He played with Smiley too, man. He played with all the cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know
Wow.
he was well known around here, you know, back in the day. You know.
For people watching who might not know who Roy Brown is, Roy Brown was one of the first guys to have a big hit record out of New Orleans. It was a big national hit record called Good Rockin' Tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
So, did you have other musicians in your family coming up?
No, not, well, I mean later on, my sister, you know, she played piano. She's a piano teacher, and she sang. Well, she was like a singing opera singer. She's got she was studying opera at Loyola University. That's where she graduated from. And music therapy. She graduated in music therapy, and you know, to be in music therapy, you got to have one foot in and one foot out. You know, you know,
That sounds like the hokey pokey.
yeah, you know, you got to be, you know, one in and one out because you're dealing with people that's, you know,
Sure.
on another level.
That's too much.
So she's like Sunday. She played the violin. Angela, she played the violin. Sarah, she studied classical piano at Loyola. She graduated in classical piano.
So it's in your genes,
I guess,
in your
you know,
family genes.
yeah.
And what are your earliest memories growing up in New Orleans of actually hearing or seeing live music? Was it out in the street? Or did you get someone take you to clubs where you actually got
Well-
to hear some of these people in the 50s?
I remember.
Tell us about your early musical experiences in New Orleans. 'Cause that's the
Well,
era
in the
I'm
neighborhood
interested
where I lived, well, let me see. I'm trying to remember all this stuff. Yeah, in the neighborhood I lived down in. Well, I was born, raised in the Garden District on Camp Street between Pleasant and Harmony.
in. Well, there you
Yeah,
go. So
you know.
that's part of the reason right there. How can you not be a musician
Yeah,
going up near
so
Harmony Street
That
in
was
New
that's-
Orleans?
and on the other side of Magazine Street is the Irish Channel.
Uh-huh.
So my dad moved from there to 70 Chapatoulas. I went to J.M. Lewis Elementary School, which was on Chippewa. You know,
Yeah.
went to from there. I attended Carter G. Woodson. The first year Woodson opened up. You know, under the direction of Miss Mercedes Stamps. You know, that was my Alvin Baptiste was doing his practice and teaching. And Harold Baptiste was my saxophone teacher.
Was he really?
Yeah. Harold Baptiste was, he wasn't just, a little, we used to call him Fat Daddy. He was a little kind of, and Alvin Baptiste was skinny. You know,
Were they related?
I don't think so.
No,
I
I
mean,
think
I
they
don't
they
know.
were.
I don't really
Harold Baptiste, for people who are watching, was became a producer. One of the records he produced, which was a hit out in New Orleans, was "I Know" for Barbara George
know. Barbara Joyce,
on the AFO, All for One record label with James.
and he did
Black
all that stuff with Sonny and Cher.
And he went out to California, and he got Mac Rebennack a gig playing with Sonny and Cher, and that's how
I didn't know
Dr.
that.
John. Yeah, when
Yeah.
Dr. John had to get out of New Orleans for police reasons.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And Harold Baptiste gave him a job when he landed in L.A. And Harold Baptiste was around. He died like 6 years ago, something like that, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I went to his funeral.
Yeah. So that,
And he was a nice cat, Harold. There's a very common name in New
Oh
Orleans,
yeah, Milton
and
Baptiste,
you
David
could go through a
Baptiste.
whole bunch of Batistes, and you find that you just assume they're all related, and they say, no, 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 we're not related at
No,
all.
they're not
It's
all
a bit like the
related.
name Smith in England, so yeah. So Harold Batiste was that your teacher?
From Woodson, I went to George Washington Carver. See, when I attended Woodson, it was a brand new school,
Yeah.
and I left Woodson and I went to George Washington Carver down in Ninth Ward because then my parents moved down in the lower Ninth Ward
Oh, I
on
see.
Delaware Street,
Uh-huh.
down the street from the Lasties. He lived in the next block.
So were you tight with David Lasty?
Well, that came later on because I
Yeah.
was a little kid. So,
Yeah.
we had some neighborhood guys that put together a little band. We call ourselves the Whalers.
Really, you were in the Whalers?
Yeah, that's
Ninth
we
Ward
call
Whalers.
yeah, we call ourselves the Whalers. And used to have little talent shows like
Yeah.
at the Caffin Theater, which is on Caffin and Galvez. Honey Boy, better known as
Charles Otis.
Yeah, and
Really, he was the drummer in your
yeah,
band?
no, he was in a house band.
Oh, he was
The
in
house band. It
Oh,
was
I
like
see,
talent shows, so they had a house band.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's amazing.
know,
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
Emile Vanette, I think, was playing. Emile Vanette or either oh, oh man, I can't think of the guy name. You know who I'm talking about if I name it. He played with Edward Frank.
Edward Frank, the famous one-handed piano player
Yeah,
from New
played more
Orleans.
piano with one hand than most people play
That's
with
what.
two.
It's so funny because that's what when you mention Ed Frank's name, that's what everybody says. He played more piano with one
That's
hand
right.
than most people do with two.
Yeah.
He was a great cat, Ed Frank. Really good piano player.
Now, you got me thinking about all this stuff
Yeah,
as a
so tell me
child.
more
As a
because this is the
child,
interesting stuff.
so I remember David Lasty. We lived in the 1900 block. They lived in the 1800 block, and they had like a Campbellback house where they would practice upstairs. But I used to hear all this music,
Yeah.
and I was shy. I didn't never go knock on the door. I was a kid, man.
Yeah.
Like 14, 15 years old. But then later on, I found out that Ornette Coleman used to stay up there. He used to live there at one
Really?
point in time.
Wow.
Yeah, he lived in New Orleans, man. Ornette Coleman. They had a lot of great musicians in New Orleans. You had Alshine Robertson. You had Oliver, who shot the Lala Morgan. Mostly was entertaining. You had Jesse Hill. You had Ernie McLean. You had George Davis.
Yeah.
You had Morris Bashman. You had Paul Doney. I mean, the names go on and on.
Tell me about those last two, because all the other names I knew, but the Morris Dashman and Paul Danny. Tell me about them.
Paul Doney,
Yeah.
called him Black Paul. He played bass. His daddy had a club called Fields on Law and Delaware. It was a little a little bar room.
Yeah.
Cats used to be back there jamming during the day. That kind of thing. He was a hell of a bass player. I don't know who he went on. Probably played with David and them a lot back in the day. I think he was the bass player. Shine was Al Shine Robertson was the guitar player. So I'm trying to fast forward all this stuff.
Well, let's just pause a second because there's a lot of stuff there to explain to people. A lot of people watching this, many of them, I'm guessing, are fans of New Orleans rhythm and blues, but perhaps they're watching from other countries and have never actually been to New Orleans. So when we talk about the Ninth Ward, for example, we all know what the Ninth Ward is. But for someone that might be watching from Europe or Japan, you have to explain that the Ninth Ward is a part of New Orleans that produced a lot of musicians. I mean, all over New Orleans, you got good musicians. But in the Ninth Ward, which is where we are right now, but we're talking really, this is the upper Ninth Ward, but the lower Ninth Ward, the other side of the Industrial Canal, produced musicians who really were, I mean, you mentioned Jesse Hill, just for one name.
Jesse Hill, yeah.
Jesse Hill and David Lasty. And for any of the people that watched the Quarantine a few weeks back when we had Hurlin Riley, David Lasty was Hurlin Riley's uncle.
That's right.
And Hurlin Riley is one of the greatest drummers we have in the city right now.
Not because but do you know Hurlin was a trumpet player.
He told me he was a trumpet player.
He played. Now I'm gonna tell you a story about that. I was at my house, chilling, and David came knock on the door. He said, "Look, man, why don't you come on down to the school? They had a school right down the street from the house." He said, "We having a little program for the kids and whatnot."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, grab the horn, go down there. So I'm playing. So this little kid walks on the stage with a trumpet. Had to be about 8 years, maybe 12 years old, I think.
Yeah.
And so we started playing, and little kids started playing, man, playing like Miles and all these bad dudes. I said, man, I'm looking at the little kid, and David and them looking at me, and they bust. And I come to find out it was Hurling. Yeah,
Really?
so he'll tell you the
Wow.
story. He played his very
Hurling, if you're
first,
watching, you gotta come. You gotta tell me that story.
you
Yeah.
know. And then I said, well, what
Playing
happened to
drums.
the yeah, I
Yeah.
said, what a drum? He said, well, man, I always used to play. I always played the drums. We'd be sitting at the dinner table because his grandfather. What was his grandfather?
Puppy.
No, Poppy. That's his uncle.
Oh.
His grandfather, man. I can't think of the man's name.
Walter?
Frank
Lasty.
Frank Lasty. They'd be sitting at the table with the knives and the forks at the dinner table, and they'd be playing the drums. He said he always did play the drums. I didn't know that. I just thought he was a trumpet player. But you know, and like talking about my early upbringing in music, and then I met a guy by the name of John Moore, better known as Deacon
John,
'cause
yeah.
Probably, just setting in with different cats. I really, I got to ask John how we met, because I know we used to play a club called Mary's Tavern up on Magazine Street. I think the building is still there.
Ah.
And we would walk the ball, kick over the drinks and stuff like that, slide across the floor with the sawdust on the floor, because you put sawdust on the floor. And the funniest thing, I'll tell you a story about that, make you laugh about something. So I was playing a gig with Freddie Kemp.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Kemp, about
Tenor player that played.
tenor player that
Fats
played with
Domino.
Fats Domino.
Yeah.
Fred about 5 feet tall. He's a little short guy,
Yeah.
And he played tenor. Well, at that time he was playing alto because we was kids. So I had walked the ball, knocked over the drinks so the customers could buy more drinks. I couldn't get on top of a bar now. So Kemp, he was standing next to me playing alto. I don't forget what song. He seen it. I said, well, do it again. See that the back was flipped in standing position while playing the saxophone. This cat was something else. Boy, the people started throwing money. We were kids. So at the end of the gig, we gathered all the money and we go to a little sweet shop on LaSalle Street, right down the street from the world famous Dewdrop Cafe, and split up the money, right? so I go home. I got this. It was like $47 and some change.
That was a lot of money back then.
Back in the day, so I go home and I said, my mama said, boy, where you get all that money from? I said, I was playing with Fred at this place, and he started doing backwards flips, and these people started giving us all this money, But $47 was a lot of money, man.
I bet
If
it
you was
was,
making
yeah.
$100 back, that was back in 1950. I want to say 56. What year Shirley and Lee had that Feel So Good? That was 55, huh?
Mid 50s. I don't know exactly what year it was, but
Yeah,
around
that's
that time.
around 55, because I remember the solo.
Well,
Yeah.
let's play a little bit of that.
I
Let's
don't
play
know
some
the
music.
solo, man. I don't remember that
Well,
solo.
what can feel so good? Now is come let me see what I've been missing. Feel so good. Now that you feel so good. Now that you're home, well, come let me. Now that you're gone,
Yeah. Man, I haven't played that I haven't played that song in almost
Did you know
50
that?
some odd years.
Did you know that that song, and they're in Jamaica, that when the Jamaican bands play them, they put the accents on what the right hand of the piano player was doing. And they said they had a name for it. They called it ska. Because it sounded like ska, 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 ska. And that style ska, over the period of time, slowed down.
Okay.
And that's where reggae came from.
Oh, I see where that's, yeah, okay,
that's
how they
where
put the
reggae
accent
came
on it.
Because in
like on the
Jamaica,
upbeat.
they like scat, 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 and then reggae, 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 reggae. So that's a good example of how
you're saying New Orleans music influenced the Jamaican sound?
Jamaicans started by playing, they were playing calypso and mento before that, but when they started copying New Orleans R&B, what they started with was New Orleans R&B, and gradually it became their own thing, and that's where reggae comes from. So Bob Marley, all that stuff, if you wanted to, you could trace all that stuff back to New Orleans, and that tune is one of those tunes.
You know, there was a place in New Orleans called the Off Limits. It was on Dumaine and Claiborne. In
Treme.
Yeah, in the Treme. And the band started playing like 3 o'clock in the morning. So you come. But what I say that to say this, one night, because people come to New Orleans to learn New Orleans music, and they take stuff out and they take it and bring it other places, like what you were saying. And Isaac Hayes was in there hiding peeping behind a corner, Because
Really?
he had a New Orleans drummer that played with him, a guy by the name of Willie Cole was his drummer. He was from New Orleans. Yeah,
Was he really?
Yeah, when he was cutting all them records, I was a New Orleans drummer. New Orleans drummers are famous, man. Like even Ray Charles, and early Ray Charles, his drummer was from New Orleans too, a guy by the name of Hogan.
I didn't know that.
Played on all of them.
Really?
Then Ernie Ellick.
I'm familiar with Ernie Elliott. I never heard of Hogan.
Hogan, yeah, that was the cat. There's a thing he did in Brazil with the original big band and original riff.
The thing's on YouTube.
That's Hogan playing drums.
Really?
Yeah.
He
Just
actually used to stay upstairs
like Big Joe Turner.
Uh-huh.
That was a cat. I used to play with him when I was a kid. Yeah, and I didn't know he was famous. I know he sung everything in C. So I said, well, it's gonna be a C night tonight. You're gonna roll like a big wheel in the Georgia honey hut. Say I-O, silver. I said, okay. So, but then some years after that, I was watching television and then Count Basie Band was on TV. And here come this cat, Big Joe Turner. And I said, whoa. I said, man, I used to play with that guy when I was a little kid.
So you didn't realize at the time.
I didn't know he was famous.
He was he was an important person. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
where people are watching, let us know, people who are watching on Facebook, send in a message and let us know where you're watching from. And if anybody's got any questions for Roger, please just send them in and Trish can read them out. Because this is, I'm learning all kinds of stuff tonight. Seriously. But we mentioned a couple of musicians. Let's mention, you talked about Something You Got, which is a famous it's actually a Chris Kenner tune. But Alvin Robinson was a guitar player from New Orleans who made a bunch of great records. Down Home Girl was a big hit for him.
That's got to be
just
the
killing record.
soulfulest thing I ever heard.
And when he played Something You Got, that was like everyone in New Orleans knows that tune. Everybody plays Something You Got. But when he did it, he played it so slow.
Yeah.
And there's a real skill to playing slow and making it groove.
Yeah.
And people in New Orleans can really do that. We should play it just a little bit, just to give them a taste. You want to play it in B flat? You want to play it in C?
Oh, either one. Which one? Which one you like?
Let's do it in B flat. Well, you got, baby, make me work all day. It's a bring home on my pay. Something you got, baby. You wanna know? I said, my It's something you got, baby. It makes the feeling alright. Something you got, baby. You ought to know. I said, hey, Roger. Something you got, babe. It's something you got. It's something you got, baby. Something you got. Something you got, baby. You ought to know. I said, my, oh, I said, my, oh, I love you so.
Yeah, something you got make me work all day, all year, all night.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in music around New Orleans for about 60 some odd years, so I just about play with everybody. I used to play with Eddie Bo when he had.
Oh, you played on that?
I brought a baritone saxophone to a rehearsal with Eddie Bo, because Eddie Bo lived down in the lower Ninth Ward too. Also, he
Did he
lived
really?
about
I
five
didn't know
blocks
that.
from. Yeah, Eddie Bo lived in the Nine. So I brought this. No, well, I was playing with a group called Deacon. The band broke up. Well, I mean, Deke left the band, and the band went with Eddie Bo. So that's how I got stayed with Eddie Bo. I was playing tenor, so I got Freddie Kemp in the band. Whenever anything happens, like Kemp get a good gig, so I brought a baritone to rehearse. It was a baritone that was the baritone player that played in Deacon Jones.
Just getting worse and worse and worse.
Really?
It's,
the internet?
It's the internet.
service.
It's on.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I'm
Oh,
gonna.
okay. So people who are watching, we're
I'm
going to
gonna
try and
try and
reboot the
reboot, see
thing
if it-
because there's something funky going on with Facebook. We've been talking about this, where I think
They're limiting.
they're kind of they
They're-
don't want
they're-
people doing live streams
Oh,
on
they
there, the live feed a little
Yep.
bit. So people, please bear with us. We're going to just reboot the machines because we don't want this boot and come back and rejoin me and Roger here, getting me getting a history lesson from Roger
Okay.
on
let me.
the
let
musicians
me,
back in the day.
Let me.
Bear with us. Come